Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of the Payne and Drain Show following a much better week two, where a lot of our stress, a lot of our anxieties were relieved, even if it's just temporary, with a 52 to 21 thumping of Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears. My name is Zach Payne. I am one half of this podcast, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host Alex Drain. Alex, how are we feeling after that emphatic victory by the Lions?
Well, the Michigan Detroit Lions fans really rode the roller coaster over the past 2 weeks. Last week, as a kind of couple punches to the face. This week, much more satisfying. Michigan blowing out Central Michigan 63 to 3. More of a blowout than probably anticipated. Not the biggest win of all time, but still very nice to see. And then the Lions game, definitely cathartic. And that was a big win for the team because, as we'll get to at the end of the show, big test coming up this week. It really did feel like a must win game because the Lions are going to be a road dog coming up against the Ravens. 0-3 start would not have been good. There would have been a lot of unpleasant discourse. So that game was huge. Just kind of took a shower a little bit and got cleansed after the Green Bay game. You're on okay footing, 1-1. Tough game coming up, but then a couple easier ones after that due to a big injury, which we'll talk about later too. So the ship is not sinking. That's my summary of the past week.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny to have to refer to a week two game as almost must win. I was so hesitant to go that far over the past week, but when you look at it, I don't know what the statistic would have been, but how many teams start 0 and 3 and make the playoffs? It can't be a high percentage.
Okay, I
So
mean the 0-2 stat is already, isn't it only like 5% or 7%? They always bring it up or whatever, but 0-3 is a tough hole.
exactly. So even though the Lions have a relatively soft home schedule, you couldn't start 0 and 2, and thankfully didn't even come close to starting 0 and 2. The Lions just kick the tires, beat the brakes off the Bears, whatever metaphor you want to use. Ben Johnson's return to Detroit, he gets booed very loudly in the warm-ups. And then I saw some people that were micro-analyzing the post-game handshakes in the last 24 hours, where Ben Johnson 1 second handshake with Dan Campbell, and then he's just off the field. Jared Goff had to run after him, and people were kind of analyzing that, being like, "Oh wow, he's not grateful for the city. He got beat by 31 guys. Like, relax. I would not be eager to stick around if I got beat that badly against my old team either." So, to start off with, before we get into the game, as we did last week, and as we will always do, we got to start a little bit with some injury news. Now, we got blessed with some very good news because at the end of the game, Brian Branch went down after a collision with Jack Campbell, and obviously people were very worried because Brian Branch, as we will talk about in the defensive segment, had a insane game and has quickly reasserted himself as a top safety in the league. Thankfully, the leg injury he suffered was just cramps, so he is going to be good to go. Aiden Hutchinson got banged up in the game on an illegal chop block where he kind of got tabletopped there by Darnell Wright and Jonah Jackson, but looks like that might just be like a Charlie horse of some kind or like a really bad bruise because he stayed in the game. He didn't come out, but he was hobbled a little bit, so something to keep an eye on for practice reports this week. Obviously, Taylor Decker played in this game despite not practicing all week last week, so I still wouldn't be shocked if he didn't practice on Thursday, which will be the first practice of the week because it is the Monday night game. And then the big one, the most predictable outcome, Marcus Davenport gets injured on two separate occasions in this game. Earlier, picking up an ankle injury, then coming back, getting a sack, and on that sack, picking up a shoulder injury. Now, it is worth noting that Davenport spoke to reporters after the game, and it doesn't seem to be a long-term injury, but we do know he's seeking second opinions, and we have no idea how long he might be on the sidelines for. So that is, as we talked about all offseason, why be surprised? We knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, I was kind of laughing almost when that Davenport sack injury happened. Like he finally does something and then he's injured. Like what else can you say? It's beyond parody at the moment.
Yeah, it's so. Al-Qadim Muhammad was very good in relief, thankfully, and the Lions do have some other options that will have to step up in depth roles likely, unless Davenport can play. It would be very nice to have him on the field against the Ravens. So we'll see. He does have the extra day to rest. And aside from that, Terry Arnold was a full go in this game. I know people were still frustrated with him, but we'll talk about that later. He got robbed of his first career interception too, which was really unfortunate for him. And aside from that, I don't think I'm missing anything else. I think it's another week where the Lions were relatively okay injury wise.
Yeah, it wasn't particularly big carnage or anything in this game.
Yeah. So jumping into this game now, we will start on the offensive side of the ball as we always do. And you said cathartic was the word you used to describe this game earlier, and that really was especially true for the offensive side of the ball, where coming off a game in which you don't score a touchdown until garbage time with the most incredible catch by Isaac Tesla, who had another incredible grab in this game, and they respond by putting up a 50 burger. I cannot like overstate how important it was for the offense to show that they are indeed still the high quality offense that we've known them to be over the last few years. And we're kind of proving that personnel matters a lot more than an offensive coordinator shift probably does, for as much as there are some minor details. Very good for Johnny Morton, very good for the personnel. Jared Goff just dominant all game. But I want to start with the engine of the offense, the offensive line, because the offensive line last week we talked about were terrible, plain and simple. In this game, just two pressures allowed, zero sacks allowed. The offensive line gave Jared Goff all day to throw, and you could really see the difference when Goff is comfortable and composed in the pocket versus when he was a little frantic last week.
Yeah, they were way better in this game, pass protection especially. I think they were charged with two pressures in the game. I don't know if that counted the one sack they gave up, which was then nullified
It
by
wouldn't have now.
offsetting penalties. But and that one honestly was not even really related to poor play from the OL. It was more sort of poor preparation, I guess you would say, because on that play, you have a rusher come through untouched between Sewell and Ratledge, which is clearly just like a line call issue. They didn't really set the protection properly. And then on the other side, you had Coyote Awashika in playing as a sixth OL on that snap. I think that was his only sixth OL snap in the game. But then he played with the second team OL on the last drive of the game, and he was playing tackle on that drive as well, which I thought was interesting. My opinion of the snaps we saw is that he is not a tackle because on that play I was talking about where he's the 6 OL, they put the edge on him as opposed to Decker, and it does not go very well, and that's how it ends in a sack. So like, if the one sack you give up is just like a protection setting issue slash Coyote Awashika playing left tackle, essentially, okay, we can live with that. That's not really something that's going to be a big problem. Beyond that play, there was very little, and Goff, what little pressure came, Goff handled it fine. Um, just really strong in pass protection as a whole. On the ground, I thought they were pretty solid too. The PFF grades didn't love them. I was higher in my view. I thought the Bears did a decent job of kind of gumming it up in the middle. One guy who stood out to me was Noah Sewell, Penei's brother, linebacker for the Bears. Thought he had a nice game on rewatch. That helped keep the Lions kind of in the yard between the tackle runs, but then the Lions had a lot of success getting to the edge. I liked Mahogany quite a bit in this game in particular. He was really lauded in pass pro, less so on the ground. I thought he was good on the ground too, but that was a nice bounce back game from him. He had a really rough showing in Green Bay, but now through four career starts, I would say he's had three very good ones and one poor one, which is a fine ratio for what is still essentially a rookie.
Yeah. And then on the other side, Tate Ratledge, I thought Tate was a little bit more chaotic in pass protection in the sense that he got the job done, but it just looked a little bit messier in a sense where he was constantly like the he has a lot of power in his hands, and so he was pushing the defensive lineman back a lot, but then he would just get into these almost like slap fests with the defender where they're not really engaged, like fully locked in engaging, and they're kind of going back and forth. But very like got the job done. Sewell and Decker anchored the edges, and Glasgow a lot better on the interior. Seemed like there was going from the hostile environment in Lambeau to the obviously friendly environment in Ford Field and being able to communicate a little bit easier definitely worked wonders for the interior of the offensive line and these young guards. As far as the run game goes, I think the it's tough because I think the way that the line is blocking the opposing defensive line has been good, but I still think they're struggling to get to the second level and block some of these
Yep.
linebackers. And the tight ends are the one run that the first touchdown run that Gibbs had, Sam Laporta basically single-handedly blocked like three people and prevented them from getting to the edge. Like Laporta's looked good as a blocker. Brock Wright is obviously a good blocker. It's just on those inside runs, there hasn't been enough from the guards and Graham getting to the linebackers to just get that extra chip. Because we saw on the one Gibbs run that was like a 42-yarder, the second that he got open space, he took off. He was gone. There was another 30-yarder later in the game as well. But then there was a run, the one outside run that didn't work, where Noah Sewell gets into the backfield clean, and then Jahmyr Gibbs decides he's trying. Gibbs has been doing too much through 2 weeks. That's the second week in a row that he's had a negative 8+ yard loss on a run where it should have been a loss of one, and he does his best Barry Sanders impression and gets caught trying to do too much. So, uh, I think that's the next evolution for the run game. I don't know how that's going to fare against a very good Baltimore team, but we'll talk about that later. As far as this game goes, though, it results in another good but not great day running the ball. Even though the stats at the end of the day look fine, Gibbs had 12 for 94, I want to say, and like 75 of those came on 2 carries. So,
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. The part about getting to the second level. I thought what they did against the defensive line of the Bears was good in this game. I mean, that first drive where they just kind of paved the Bears down the field, that touchdown, or maybe it was the touchdown a little later with Montgomery, but it was the same story on both those plays where there were a few snaps in this game that I highlighted where by the time Montgomery even really gets the snap, the line has moved 2 yards upfield and they had just blown those defensive tackles back. So that was good to see. Glasgow, I thought was okay as a whole. I still think he's probably going to be the weak link on this line once Ratledge starts to figure it out a little bit more, but it is what it is. It's not quite totally what we want to see from the run game, but they're getting closer, and it could help just to get a little bit more from Gibbs. He had the one run that I think it was the toss play. It might have been. There's that one where he like slows down and like jukes a guy on the sideline. That was someone cut up that clip and was sharing it online. That was a nice play. But otherwise, I wasn't still really crazy about Gibbs. He ran backwards on the one play again. That needs to stop. And then there was one play where I thought he missed a cut that could have turned into something. Montgomery, I thought was fine. The one play I do want to talk about though is that sort of toss play. They ran it on the last touchdown drive, I believe, where they have the whole blocking going one way, and Goff takes like the first step that direction, then pitches back to Gibbs. That was a great play. That was
yeah,
Morton's best play design
beautiful.
in the game. So a little more of that, I guess.
Yeah, and it's funny because the standard we set for Jahmyr Gibbs is so high that that one 8 yard loss or 9, 10 yard loss, whatever it ended up being, was the difference between him having 100 yards on like 11 carries.
Yeah.
Like his production was actually very good, and yet we're still sitting here being like, he's just not really been as good as he was. And it's absolutely hysterical to think of the next level he could get to, and that we know he's capable of. He probably will hit in the next few weeks. So if we look back to the start of last year, Gibbs was not like cranking out these highly productive games at the start of the year. It took him a little bit to get into the swing of things. One thing I do want to bring up that I had someone was commenting about the idea of using Montgomery more earlier in games versus Gibbs early in games. We have enough proof of concept of Montgomery early in games and the way that kind of wears a defense down. Would you consider altering the split at all to have Montgomery be more involved early in games, or are you content with Gibbs being out there from the jump?
I see that argument. I still like just mixing them up throughout the game. I mean, there's an argument you could make to the flip side, right? Which is that Montgomery's power can be better in the fourth quarter to kind of finish them off. Either way, I just like the variety, and I like mixing them on drives more than just doing Gibbs drive, Montgomery drive, which we talked about some last year. But Um, it's a good like situation to be in, right? Where you can just kind of go any way. And I don't think any of the scenarios will be bad. Like if you want to lead Montgomery first, okay. Like I don't think that will change a ton. I think it will probably have success because these guys are real good.
Yeah. Moving on to the pass game, which was just unbelievable. Literally from the first play where Jared Goff hits Amon-Ra St. Brown for like a 40 something yard gain. Jared Goff, he had a couple of misses in the first half looking for Jameson Williams, where he had the one out route that he missed a wide open JMO by like 10 yards, and then he had one bad deep shot. Aside from that, Goff was pretty near perfect in this one. Five touchdown passes, matches a career high, helps lead the Lions to over 500 yards of offense. Just looked like his normal, composed, poised self in the pocket. He did a good job evading pressure. He had a couple scrambles in this game, which was fun to see. And Goff, as other people have pointed out, Goff has been doing a lot better off script this year to start compared to previous seasons, where last week you can obviously talk about, oh, well, he checked it down a few too many times, but that's Goff working through his reads and having to check it down versus checking down out of fear. Out like there was a couple times where he missed throws in the Packers game because he was getting antsy, but in this one he was working through his progressions, he was working off script, he was making throws on the run, on the move. There was the one to JMO that was like the 60-yard gain that was like a little bit behind him on the run, but he was also getting hit at the same time as I think Laporta was getting run over by Montez Sweat, which that was a bold one, blocking wise. Just honestly, super solid from one of the league's best.
You want to play the Goff incompletions game? He had five in this game. Can you name them? Or
Okay,
just conceptually what the plays were.
so out route to Jamison Williams,
Yep.
shot play to Jamison Williams,
Yep.
over the middle to Amon-Ra St. Brown on a diving PBU by Jalen Johnson that he got hurt on.
Yep.
Um, okay, this is where it gets tricky. I want to say because I know JMO was 2 for 4, so those are the two ones to JMO that he didn't get. Was there another one to Amon-Ra that was incomplete? One of them, did they end up counting the uh spike at the end of the half, or did they just not
No,
count that play?
no, no, they didn't count that play.
Was there another clock on that drive?
Nope.
Huh. Then I'm out. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the other two were on third downs. There's the 3rd and 6 on the second drive where some pressure comes. I think Goff should step up on this play, and he's got Raymond over the middle. He rolls, and then pressure comes, and he kind of just tries to throw
Right.
it towards Laporta, and it's incomplete. The other one is a 3rd and 9 where he looks for Amon-Ra, and he throws like a little behind him. I think if he hits him in stride, it's a catch and run for potentially get the first down. It's a little behind, and Amon-Ra doesn't come up with it.
That play, I remember seeing that one and being like, yeah, Goff predetermined that one. And you could tell because he was like, oh, Amon-Ra is going to have a catch and run opportunity. The corner was all over it. Even if Amon-Ra makes that catch, he's not going anywhere. But
So that's the five. And the thing about this game is the five happened pretty early. He was 6 of 11, and then he finishes the game with 17 in a row.
that's the Seattle game right there, pretty much from last year, right? Like Goff just has this ability, like when he's dialed in, he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league, if honestly not the most accurate. Obviously, what he has in accuracy, he doesn't have the mobility some of these other guys have. So there's obviously that factor, but Goff is as accurate a QB as there is in the league. And when he's in the zone and he's protected like he was in this game, he will carve up opposing defenses in any which way.
Yeah, he's kind of like a last of his kind quarterback. Like just in terms of watching him, like I don't think we'll ever see another guy like him. I think that the bar has now been set so clearly that you have to be able to run to even a some amount, right? Like CJ
Yeah.
Stroud isn't Lamar Jackson, but you got to be able to do a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll ever see an immobile guy like Goff in this way again. And so it's kind of fun to watch, and it's a reminder of kind of how the old school used to be. And it can still work if you give him time. I mean, that's just the story of this game. He had time to work, and he puts up 23 of 28 for 334, 11.9, five touchdowns, zero interceptions.
It's very funny to think that these guys like Herbert, Burrow, Stroud, that will run for, or Baker even, will run
Sure.
for 400 yards a year, and those are going to be considered pocket passers. Like That those are considered like in the modern day where Mahomes and Lamar and Allen are just never in the pocket, it seems like the art of a pocket passer is definitely lost to the NFL. And I mean, I'm sure eventually there will be an egregious overcorrection once all of these college kids can only run and they can't actually throw the ball with any accuracy. And there's going to be some diamond in the rough that comes out that isn't as mobile, but actually just hits every single throw. But that might be a while because all the like the NFL is very much a highlight league, especially for the kids of the next generation, and all these kids want to be on these highlight reels. And to do that, you've got to be able to move your feet.
Well, some could say that the Lions were playing a quarterback who's pretty good at moving his feet, but isn't very accurate throwing the ball.
Yep.
So,
That's yeah.
the other couple of golf things, he had a couple sidearm throws in this game, both to tight ends, one to Laporta, one to Wright. Those were kind of nice. He navigated his feet pretty well on those plays. And then, as you mentioned, the ball to JMO is a little behind. That's a nice catch from him. Good to see JMO involved both on that one, and then obviously the bomb. No one's even close on that play. I mean,
Yeah. Someone pulled up a side by side of that and JMO's first career touchdown against the Vikings, and they're nearly identical. They like obviously his first career he was open by even more, but I don't know what was happening on that side of the Bears defense in the secondary, but some sort of miscommunication, and JMO just ends up 10 yards behind you. And if that happens, that's a touchdown every single time. So good to see JMO get involved. Amon-Ra was his usual dominant self. First time he scored three touchdowns in a game. So good for Amon-Ra. The one at the end of the half, we was Bears fans were very happy about that end of half sequence where Isaac
we got to
Tesla.
we have to
Yeah,
talk about that on its own. One thing I do want to say on Amon-Ra first, though, it's just like how good is he? Just week in and week out, the
yep,
consistency, 9 catches, 115, 3 touchdowns. He also has 2 rushes, which is something that
yeah.
we should talk about,
I did want to bring that up.
including one where they run counter in front of him. Like how how many wide receivers in the league are getting like just straight running back carries on gap plays?
Well, and you were talking about how about the toss play, like the fake
Yeah.
one-way counter toss to Gibbs was the play that I like to see creativity was from Morton is that counter with Amon-Ra where they've got David Montgomery lined up as a wide receiver and Amon-Ra's in the backfield and they've run it with Amon-Ra on a 3rd and 4 to pick up 5 yards. So I I do think there is a lot of I mean Amon-Ra out of the backfield is such a insane mismatch because there is not a corner that can cover Amon-Ra man to man in this league, let alone a linebacker. So anytime you can get Amon-Ra into positions to use his route running prowess to just get open in man coverage, he's going to take advantage. And hiding him in the backfield, I think, opens up a world of possibilities. There was another play that Laporta was lined up, kind of hiding behind the offensive line as well. And I do think we're going to see more concepts that Morton kind of pulls where the either running backs or tight ends are running between the offensive line to kind of sneak through the line and all the chaos there to slip through to the second level. Very similar to the Colts actually ran a beautiful sail concept to Tyler Warren where Warren started out borderline in the backfield. It's like how many times do you see a tight end running a 15, 20 yard sail route out of the backfield like that? And it was wide open because what defense would be prepared for that? So I think Morton is just scratching the surface with some of the creativity that he has and that he's going to unlock for this offense as well. So just all aspects. I'm very encouraged by the pass game, and I'm not worried necessarily about the run game long term.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. We got a kind of 3, 4 day little swing there from Thursday into Sunday, where Thursday we're like, okay, maybe the Lions' offense isn't that bad. After we watched the Packers really bottle up Washington's offense, the Commanders came out with, I believe, slightly lower yards per play than the Lions. I think it was 3.5 to 3.3 there. So we watched that and we're like, okay, maybe the Lions are okay. And then after this game on Sunday, I think we get the full picture, which is that the Packers defense is really good and it's going to probably take some time to solve that riddle and find some teams that can start breaking it down a little more. And the Lions are probably in good shape. They're still going to have vulnerabilities against teams that can penetrate that offensive line, and that'll come up again at points this season. I don't doubt that. But all the pieces are still there. John Morton is not a doofus. Like this, they should be able to be a productive offense, and this game kind of confirms that. My other thought, really, in watching the offense, especially on rewatch, just like the Bears' defense is just awful, just
How is it?
terrible.
How is a defense that has Jalen Johnson as one of your corners this bad? Well, he's
Well,
out
they
for the
don't
year.
have him anymore,
Yeah,
so
he's out for the year. So the Bears are going to be horrible the rest of the year. We talked about John Morton's not a doofus. Dennis Allen might be a doofus.
yeah, that's such a kind of a weird hire. Like I know he had success as a DC in New Orleans under Sean Payton and stuff, but he's been a head coach twice and he wasn't any good at either time, which just kind of a little worrying when you have a first time head coach and he's hiring an experienced DC who can in theory lend head coaching advice, but he's not lending good advice. Like I don't know. It's what's weird about it is remember like 2 years ago, I think yeah, the 23 season after they traded for Montez Sweat. Remember the second half of that season, they were really good defensively, like really
Hmm.
salty. They were like the Lions were kind of struggling with dealing with them,
The
and
Lions
I
should
was
have
like,
lost both games to them.
yeah, and I remember just thinking like, okay, if they can get an offense going, their defense is legit. And then they draft Caleb Williams. The whole theory is that they could lean on the defense. And now I'm just watching this game and I'm like, this is just horrible. Like they can't cover anybody. Their defensive line is getting bullied backwards. They just look unorganized. And the Lions are a good offense, yes, but you can't give up 52 points in NFL. And the thing is, it could have been more. Like the Lions
Should have
had
been
some
more.
short the Lions had some short fields they didn't take advantage of. They missed a 55-yard field goal. The golf thing to JMO, like that's the second drive of the game. If he hits that, the Lions end up punting on that drive. If that connects, Lions are already in scoring position there. Like right from the jump, it was clear the only thing that was going to stop the Lions in this game was the Lions. And you just can't give up 50 plus points in an NFL game. Like maybe if you are, 0-17 Cleveland Browns or something, but you just can't not for a team in Chicago's position. This is a team that thought they were going to be at least competing around the playoff line. This is just unacceptable, and it's very concerning. I think if you're Ben to start a coaching career and just to get off to this kind of start.
Yeah, and it so I was doing this kind of stat dive as the game was in the third quarter still, because that's kind of how this was going. But I was looking up the most points the Lions had ever scored in a game, and because this is something I looked up last year when they were putting 52 up on the Jags and Titans. The Lions, the most points they've ever put up in a game was 55 against these Chicago Bears in 1997, and the Lions should have cleared 60 fairly easily if Goff had hit on a couple of these first half throws and a couple of these mistakes didn't happen, or if Bates hits that long field goal. Like there are so many things that still went against the Lions in a 31 point win that it is just honestly embarrassing for the Bears. Like the Bear and Ben Johnson is obviously going to get a lot of criticism. Dennis Allen is going to get a lot of criticism. Those guys have to figure it out quick because I don't know if it's a lack of buy-in. I don't know if the coaches are just giving the players bad information or what is happening over there. But there's something that's out of sync and broken in Chicago that until it's
I mean,
fixed,
it's got to be like closing time for Ryan Poles,
they
right?
just
Like you,
extended him.
yeah. I mean, I know that, but at the same time, we talk about this in the NHL where like the GM gets only a certain number of new head coach cards, right? You can play the new head coach card, but eventually, if you keep firing coaches, it's on you. And he played the new head coach card in Ben Johnson. If this doesn't turn around and it's just the same thing, at some point it's got to
Yeah.
be on him.
I my favorite quote that was circulating was a Ryan Poles quote from when he first got hired that we're gonna take the North and never give it back. Since he said those words into a microphone, the Chicago Bears have a record of 2-14 against NFC North teams. What are we doing here? Like, and I was talking to someone who's a Niners fan, and they were talking about how they don't even think about like the Arizona Cardinals. Like they're not a rival, they're just the Cardinals. That's how I feel about the Bears. The Bears are not a rival. They're just the Bears. They exist.
Yeah, the Lions account, I don't know if you saw this or know the lore behind it, but the Lions official account was leaning hard into uh, there was a guy named Andy Isaac who was a very popular
Yeah.
Detroit sports character who battled cancer for a long time and passed away earlier this year. And his tagline was always "fuck the Bears." And and the Lions leaned hard into that in honor of him after the game on Sunday, which was nice. But the thing that always was weird to me about that line was I don't care about the Bears. Like I get that it was his tagline and whatever, but I never understood where it kind of came from because my whole life, certainly actually, past the age of 7, the Bears have been just totally benign. Like they made the one Super Bowl, and since then they've just been a joke, really.
Yeah, for me, it's always been fuck the Packers for me. And then in recent years, the Vikings have crept into that conversation more and more, where I'm more so frustrated that the Vikings continue to find ways to be annoying rather than actively hating them. But
Maybe not this year, but we'll get to that.
well, yeah, we'll talk about that later. But the Packers definitely seem legit, much to my uh, whatever. But hey, it is what it is. Um, but yeah, so
Defense.
that's yeah. We'll flip over to the defense now. So defensively, this game ended up being pretty good. Although it's a little bit like how the Bears defense sucks. There are parts of it that it's like, wow, the Lions defense did really good in some areas, and others that I'm like, are they good or is Caleb Williams just bad? But we'll actually start with something that was maybe a little bit more concerning. Romo Dunze was giving this defense a real hard time, especially in the first half when the game was competitive.
Yeah, I mean that was the best I've ever seen him look in the NFL. That was a really nice showing from him. He really cooked Terrion Arnold in particular. DJ Reed a little bit too, but Arnold was the main matchup. I don't really know what to say about it. He wasn't beating him deep at least. It was just a lot of 5 to 10 yard routes where he'd have a little leverage and then he'd just cut outside or he'd cut back or whatever the route was on a given play. And that generally had some success in this game. And it was a pretty reliable way for the Bears to move the ball. Outside of that, they didn't really do a lot else. I mean, DJ Moore, he was in this game, right? I didn't really see him. And it didn't occur to me until the third or fourth quarter when I was thinking to myself, like, who did the Bears draft first round this year? Like, I didn't remember. And I was like, wait a second, Colson Loveland. Where is Is he playing? Is he dressed? Did he get hurt in week 1? And I mean, Cole Kmet, same story. There was a couple for Zacchaeus who they signed from Washington, but it was really just Odunze over and over and over again. And he was pretty consistently open. So I don't know if the groin is bothering Terrion, but at the moment, the camp hype is definitely kind of looking like a 0 at the moment.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad for Tyrion in some aspects because I mentioned earlier the interception that got called back on a bogus roughing the passer call. But he's there. It's not like he's getting completely burned. He's just getting beat, like normal beat, if that
Yep.
makes sense, where he's
Yep.
just a yard or two away. He's there, he's making the tackle right away, but he's allowing the catch a little too much, a little too often. There was also another bad miscommunication, missed assignment of some sort on the Bears' first touchdown to Odunze, where no one picked him up for some inexplicable reason. There was a deep clear out route that took DJ Reed out of the play. I'm assuming the Lions were in some sort of modified cover three with a blitz coming because Reed just got taken out by the deep shot, and then Odunze just nobody was anywhere near no, Campbell, Branch, Kirby, like nobody picked him up. So definitely got to clean up some of the miscommunications in the secondary as well.
Yeah, I would say that the two biggest passing plays in this game were both not really direct personnel related. You have the miscommunication on the touchdown, that's a long catch and run. And then there's like one long throw to Odunze where it's third and like 15 late in the game. I think it was on their final touchdown drive where Tyrion like falls over and then he kind of
Well, that was a
grabs
double
him.
move. Like he just bit on a double move, and it was horrible.
Yeah, and then he kind of grabs him, and I don't think that was DPI personally, but they called it, and then he caught it anyway. So I don't know. At least it's not, as you mentioned, like consistently being burned in, blown by, right? Where it's not he's not even on the screen or he's 3, 4 yards away. It's just he's just a few yards off at the moment. And that was the issue at some points last year. But last year also he was in good position a lot. And then you get grabby. We haven't seen a lot of that so far this year. But he's also only played 6 quarters, so we have to wait and see. But it's not
Yeah.
not the best start to the season. I did think it was a bounce back game from DJ Reed though. He had I think one or two catches against, but he was good in run defense, and otherwise he I assume was in pretty good in coverage. They weren't targeting him, so that was pretty reassuring. Robertson, I don't think had a ton of snaps, but I didn't really notice him at all in positive or negative.
Yeah, he's been playing about 40-50% of snaps. The Lions have been
Yeah, they've been
playing 4-3 a lot.
yeah basically been base 4-3 this season so far.
Yeah, Barnes has been on the field like 85-90% of snaps, which is very abnormal for teams in this era. But the Lions are going to, especially going against some of these more run-heavy teams, are definitely going to stick to that base where they basically are running a hybrid 4-3-5-2 because of the way Barnes plays and where he's deployed, because they want to shut down the run. And for as much as they want to shut down the run, weirdly enough, they have not been good at it on outside runs. They've done really good. Tyreek and DJ Reader are stuffing everything up the middle. Don't have any concerns up the middle. But the way the Lions are playing the run right now, it feels like they're like, oh, we're going to funnel everything to the middle. But instead of funneling, they end up just crashing the middle, and then any outside run has been giving them problems.
Yeah, they lost their edge quite a bit in this game. In particular, there was one where Davenport was the issue. There was one where Hutchinson was the issue, and the Bears were targeting that pretty consistently and having a lot of success when they were targeting it. So I just need a little bit stronger from your edge defender. And Barnes is in there too because he's
Yep.
a lot number of those plays. He's playing that side where they're running at it. He's coming down. They just weren't getting outside of their blocks and forcing the play back inside. They're getting sealed. Allows the Bears running back to turn the corner and off they go. I also thought Ben cooked on a few of the drives. Like he had a couple nice plays to kind of exploit that. So that's something to look at as well. I mean, I feel like coming out of this game, it's definitely just a work. The defense is still a work in progress. They showed some signs, they made some progress, they had some takeaways, which is what Dan Campbell really prioritizes. But this wasn't the cleanest game of all time, wasn't their greatest defensive game. But hopefully, as the season goes along, they continue to kind of smooth it out.
Yeah, they weren't very good down to down, but they were very opportunistic. They had
Yeah.
Brian Branch, like a heat-seeking missile, just annihilated DeAndre Swift and forced the ball out on an outside toss. Kirby Joseph gets a freebie of an interception because Caleb malfunctioned and tried to throw it to Zacchaeus and overthrew him by 15 yards. There was also the fourth down stops. Tyleek Williams, a couple nice batted balls at the line, and then Tyleek and DJ Reader stuffed back-to-back sneaks on third and fourth and one, which was just an outstanding stop by the defensive front there. The run defense up the middle is about as good as it can be, honestly. It's really just and I will give Ben credit as well. There were a lot of concepts. They were running Wildcat a couple times to start this game where, I mean, Hutchinson could have had a tackle for loss of like 9 yards, but he bit on the fake toss back to Caleb and he let DeAndre just run right by him. There was also a few plays where just the different counters and pin pulls that the Bears were using caused Davenport and Hutchinson to really crash inside, which opened up the edge which they were looking for. Swift was just having way too much success for my liking, even though on the day the Bears' rushing yards aren't fantastic. It's because they didn't have the opportunity to run in the second half. Swift was successful on way too many runs, and he was. I'll give him credit too. Like he is hardly the best running back in the league, but he was a lot more decisive with his cuts in this game, and it seems like Ben kind of got through to him. That's like, okay, you got to just make one cut and go, because if you do any of this dilly-dallying in the backfield like you've done in the past, you're gonna get caught. But if you hit your cut, like if you cut with purpose and intention, you're going to get to the second level. And he did multiple times. So I do just have some concern about the way the Lions are defending elusive backs on those kind of outside zone concepts.
Yeah, it also wasn't a great linebacker day. I didn't feel like Campbell was fine. Anzalone not quite as good. Barnes didn't really do much. Like they just didn't live or on rewatch really pop up much. And that's usually not a great sign. Linebacking's hard, but you want to notice them. You want to see them doing something good
Yeah.
or bad, and it just didn't feel like they were putting themselves in positions to make plays in the run game in particular. The other thing I think that we need to talk about, did you look at the snap counts in this game on the defensive side?
I did not, aside
Do you
from the
want to,
fact that I know Roy Lopez played a lot.
yeah, do you want to guess? Let me count this up real quick. There were 117 defensive tackle snaps between their main four defensive tackles. Do you want to guess the allocation of that?
I'm gonna guess, I'm gonna guess Lopez played about 55%, I want to say. So call it, well, out of four, I don't know, be like 35, 40. Mc-
Lopez 31. So you
okay.
weren't terribly off there.
I want to say Makai Wingo probably played like 23, 24.
37 for Makai Wingo.
Damn. And then DJ Reader, I'm imagining was low 20s. Tyleek, I'm imagining was around 27, 28.
Tyleek 25, Reader 24.
Sounds about right. I mean,
So
blowout.
that's legitimately interesting though. Like I know it is a blowout. Some of that got padded at the end, but even when the game was up for grabs, they were rotating those guys really heavily. There were the first long run of the game the Bears get is Wingo and Lopez out there. That's like the fourth or fifth snap of the game. So that's something just to keep an eye on because that's like a legitimate tandem between them. And the one thing I want to talk about with this is that I would like to see a little more mixing and matching. Like this feels a little
Mm.
bit to me like
Run
it's
front,
kind of like
pass
an
front.
it's kind of like an NBA problem a little bit, where in the NBA you want to stagger your best players so that you don't have lineups of scrubs all together out there, right? So you don't take the whole basketball in general, you don't want to do a hockey line change where five are on, five are off, because the five that are your backups aren't going to be as good. So you try to stagger the minutes so that you always have one or two creators from your first unit out there. And it kind of feels like this, where I don't really want to see Lopez and Wingo together that much. Like we want to get Lopez and Wingo involved, but I'd like to see some Tyleek and Lopez or Wingo and Reader or something like that. Whereas like Lopez and Wingo together, which is what they mostly were in this game, there was just a little much of it for me. Like just
Yeah.
personally, the a little much. I
I
I would prefer to see more of Tyleek and Reader because they are just a step up in my view.
Yeah, I will say a lot of this is definitely A, blowout, B, DJ Reader cannot be playing every snap. Like he's a nose tackle that you need to, like, DJ Readers should be around 25, 30 snaps a game until Liam gets back. Then he should be like 20-ish.
Yeah.
Uh but Reader should just play every first down. And then second and longs, he can come out of the game. You can put Lopez in there. Wingo, I do like that they're exposing him to more run defense because that's the weakest area of his game, and he's still getting back up to speed as well. So give him a ton of snaps, and we'll see what he can do with them. I do want to see more pass rush juice out of him. Tyleek, we know, doesn't really have pass rush juice, but he's done a good job soaking up doubles. Yeah, I don't know. That's just interesting to monitor. As for the edges, I mentioned Al-Qadim Muhammad earlier, but I do just want to mention again, he has looked very good as a pass rusher, a situational pass rusher. I think he only had like 7 snaps in this game, but he got a sack and he showed legitimate juice. Hutchinson should have had 2 sacks, but he failed to wrap up. It led to an interception, so who cares? But Hutchinson looked better, had I want to say 5 or 6 pressures in this game. Still not playing anywhere near the level he was to start last year, but he's starting to look a little bit more comfortable. Still needs to work on his setting the edge in the run game a little bit. That's, I think, the rustiest part of his game because when you're working your way back from an injury, I think he was focused more on the natural explosion and twitch and maintaining his athleticism and maintaining his ability to hit all of his pass rush moves. But yeah, I think Hutchinson's progress is kind of in sync with the defense, where he's going to start to get better, and then the whole defense will start to look better as a result.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Wingo also seemed a little just rusty to me
Mhm.
as kind of as part of that, which makes sense. It's been a
No
while since
camp.
he played, and yeah, and he wasn't in camp really, so that's just something to file away on that front. Muhammad, as you mentioned, he was real good. Davenport, he did have the one sack. Otherwise, kind of just there. Not a lot to say about him to me.
I will say, as part of the run defense conversation, this is where I'm starting to miss Josh Pascal.
Yeah.
Because he does one thing and he does it good, and that's all he does, but he sets the edge in the run game. That's all he does. He will, like, once every 5 games, he'll have a play where he just ends up in the backfield for a 5 yard tackle for loss. But that's all he does, and the Lions really could use that skill set right now because for as much as he offers nothing as a pass rusher, really do want that run defense going. But another player that we do have to shout out, Brian Branch, who obviously had the forced fumble, but this from Lions PR this morning. Lions DB Brian Branch and Hall of Fame safety Ed Reed are the only defensive backs in the NFL since 1999 to accumulate the following numbers through the first 3 seasons of a player's career: 30 passes defended, 15 tackles for loss, 5 interceptions, 3 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. Branch is only 2 games into his third career season. I know we've talked at length about how Branch was not playing as well as he could down the stretch last year. But oh man, when he is on his game, there is not a more productive player not named Aiden Hutchinson that the Lions can throw on defense. And honestly, he's absolutely been the most impactful defender to start this year, disregarding the stupid emotional penalty he took at the start of the Packers game last week. He's just always around the ball. His instincts are off the charts, and he's got as good a chance as anyone to be a first team All Pro. He's already in like a top 3 safety conversation. He probably will reset the safety market again when his extension is due. He's just unreal, man.
Yeah, this was a great Branch game. I didn't see a ton of him in coverage, honestly. It was all just him coming down and rushing the passer, making run stops. He comes down like a heat-seeking missile on the forced fumble. That was a swift carry, I think. Yep.
But Guy only got worked in at the end, to be fair.
Yeah, and then he has the blitz with the interception called back on Terrion. That
What do you want him
I,
to do? He jumps up to try to swat the pass. What do you want him to do?
yeah, and he didn't like bonk him in the head. Like the arm came down and kind of got like the
Graze the chin?
yeah, maybe it wasn't anything particularly egregious. I think they should have let that one go. But he was their best blitzer in this game. Just he makes plays. And when you talk about earlier with down to down, they weren't as great, but they were opportunistic. That's kind of the defense that Campbell wants to build, if we're being
Yeah.
honest. Like he's kind of talked about that, where he just wants the big plays, the takeaways. And even at their best last season with Aaron Glenn, it's kind of what it was. They were so to good-ish in yardage, but then they were elite in points against, in part because they got stops in the red zone, they got takeaways. That's kind of what they want to build, and Branch is really just like the perfect player for that sort of defense.
Yeah. I'm fully content if the Lions are a bend don't break defense that also forces 1 or 2 takeaways a game. That's perfectly fine. Like if that's how they want to play, if you're giving up, like, hold them in the red zone, hold them to field goals instead of touchdowns, and then if you get those 1 or 2 takeaways a game, or you have a couple drives where you get a Hutchinson sack that forces a punt, and you're holding teams to like the way the Lions are built with how good they are on offense, hold them under 24 because you should expect the offense to score over 24 every single game. So if you hold them to 23 or less, you should win a lot of games.
Yeah, and that's generally what their formula was last year. The other thing I will say just about this game, pass rush, this was the second straight week where the pass rush was better in the second half.
Yep.
Just like last week, first half, second half started to get some real opportunities. Some of it is Caleb Williams holding the ball too long. Terrible interception with Kirby Joseph. I know he's trying to throw the ball away, but you got to throw it away.
I
Like
think he
this
was
was
looking for Zacchaeus though. Like Zacchaeus was
really.
downfield, and
I
I
thought he was trying to
what
throw it away, but
on it looks like he sees Zacchaeus open by like 2 yards, and then he heaves it. If he's trying to throw it away, then why, like, you were just flirting with the sideline a little too aggressively, because you, like, if you're throwing away, throw that thing into the stands for all I care. That you cannot leave any doubt if you're throwing the ball away in that kind of situation.
yeah, I suppose so. He also has that one where he's on the run and then he throws back across, and there's three lions like leap up for it, and then It almost gets caught by the Bears guy, and then I think Branch is the one that punches it out. But like that's just such a really dangerous throw there.
That
I
was, yeah,
just can I
one of
continue
those
to
where it's so dangerous that it almost actually worked and it was almost kind of beautiful, but then it's just weird.
I don't know if I see it with Caleb Williams. I was one of the big skeptics of him coming out of college, and haven't seen a ton to change my mind yet.
He's just so inaccurate. Like the second the Bears were cooked wasn't the end of the first half when the Lions got the big play, which we still we forgot to talk about. We should probably mention the whole clock it situation, and then the ref
Yeah,
makes
I was
the
gonna
error.
save that for game theory special
Sure, we
teams,
can
but
save that. Um, Caleb, the second the Bears lost this game is first drive of the second half, and on third down, Williams throws it 3 yards behind Zacchaeus on a simple slant. That was
yeah.
the second the Bears lost the game because they go 3-and-out to start, they punt it away. Lions immediately get into field goal range, make it a 17-point game, and you're not going to make up a 17-point difference against this team.
Yeah, I mean, the
Like, you're
lack
just
of
not.
accuracy was not really a major issue for Caleb in college. He was pretty accurate at USC. It was more the issues were running backwards and
He still
the
does that, to be
sacks
fair.
and yes, and that's the other part. And the throws across his body. That was why I was always kind of down on him. I thought that stuff wouldn't translate, and it kind of hasn't largely. But then the accuracy's lost, deserted him too, and it just is not a good picture at this point. I don't know if you saw the thing with I think it was yesterday. Someone picked up the quote from when he texted the punter after he got drafted about you won't have to punt much here, and then he's punted the most in the NFL since that point.
Yep, that tracks. That's very Bears. And I think just the thing with Caleb is that's what I was talking about earlier with this generation of highlight reel quarterbacks. Caleb is a TikTok quarterback. He will have one or two plays a game that are no one else in the league can really do that, and they will end up on a highlight reel. And you'll look at that and say, "Wow, what a play! This Caleb Williams guy really is talented." But then you watch the entire game, and when you aren't having those two plays, he's just too much hero ball, too much trying to make something out of nothing, a lot of flash over fire, like flash over substance. You need to just be able to run a simple offense. Like Ben Johnson is so obsessed with details. The fact that Caleb is so not anti-detail, but that's like the complete opposite of his game. Like his game is predicated on the things that details can't capture, escaping the pocket, making something out of nothing. And this just has to be driving Ben crazy.
Yeah, but at the same time, he signed up for this, so
Yep. Yep. I don't know what like if Caleb ever does figure out how to just relax and hit some of these easy throws, take some of these easy concepts instead of trying to make every single play a highlight reel, that's when the Bears will start to have success on offense.
yeah. So special teams, you have anything on there?
Still over the Grant Stewart experience on kick return. I'm pretty sure him and Sailors are a good 2 or 3 yards behind league average on returns, which Vaki, please get healthy. Why isn't Craig Reynolds returning kicks? Dominic Lovett he's here for some reason, but he's not. I thought he was here for his special teams contributions. He's barely being used on special teams, so maybe give Lovett a shot on kick return. I don't know. The coverage was better for the most part. The punt coverage was better. I had, I think overall it was a perfectly acceptable special teams day. Bates obviously misses a 55-yarder, was it? Which happens, I guess. It didn't end up mattering, but 55, with how good kickers in the NFL are nowadays, 55 is about the range where it's like you kind of want to hit that probably 80% of the time.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing for him to miss that one. There was one good kick return they gave up to Luther Burden in the first half of the game. That one got out to the 36. There was also a 15-yarder on Rice that allowed the Bears to
Oh,
start on like the
that
42-yard line. Um,
ridiculous stuff. Like so stupid.
yeah, they actually announced today Rice has been released from the practice squad. So,
There you go.
yeah, beyond that. Jack Fox pinned Chicago inside the 20 twice. Don't have a ton else. Still not feeling incredible about special teams, but I guess a step in the right direction. My only game theory thing, they went for it on 4th and goal to get the 7th touchdown. What do you have to say about that?
So while I was streaming the game, I remember that third and goal happening, and I jokingly was like, "Go for it, cowards!" And then they kept the offense on the field. I was like, "Oh, you're actually going? Okay, I was kidding, but sure, let's do it." And then I that's one of those where I know Ben Johnson was asked after the game if he was like, "Was Dan Campbell running up the score?" He's like, "They don't kick field goals over there. That's what they do." I was like, "Well." Yeah, that and there was another thing too I saw where people were like, nobody runs up the score on bad teams like the Lions. What are they supposed to do? You want them to purposely you want them to play like the 2019 Pittsburgh Steelers and purposely play down to their competition? Like what are we doing here?
Yeah, that's like that Chris Christie quote from last year about how the Lions were disrespectful to the Cowboys for running it up or whatever in that game.
Play better.
Bears also went for it on 4th and 1 at their own 35.
I I don't know how many like if you had gone into the third and one and said, "Hey, we're gonna sneak it twice. Surely we could get a yard, right?" I don't blame anyone on that Chicago sideline for assuming they would have picked up a single yard.
Yeah, I don't hate it simply because based on the way their defense was playing, any punt in this game is like waving the white flag, basically.
Also, on that fourth and one, Tyreek was kind of offside. Tyreek was like,
Well,
he was pretty far over the ball, but hey,
if
it
the
doesn't
if
matter.
the if the Eagles are allowed to false start on every tush push, then the defense can be allowed to be offside sometimes as a
I'm
treat.
so glad that this tush push revolution is happening early in the season before the Lions play them, so that hopefully by the time the Lions play the Eagles, that the officials are looking at that play a little bit more closely.
Yeah, so the end of the half fiasco. Uh, this first of all, great catch by Isaac Tisla.
Unbelievable.
Feels like they got to give him more snaps if this is a thing he's doing on a regular basis. The actual thing itself was such an interesting thing because if you actually lay it out, essentially, the referee incorrectly ruled that the receiver was out of bounds, and then the timekeeper incorrectly ruled or incorrectly did not stop the clock when the correct thing would have been to keep the clock running if the referee had gotten the call right. So you basically have a clock management, a timekeeper failure, and a referee failure, and that together they kind of canceled each other out on the play. But when I was watching it live, and this is a thing that I just want to say in general, the timekeeper stuff is driving me crazy in football. We had one of these in the Michigan game at the end, a similar situation, end of the first half. The timekeeper has one job. You watch the game, and when the referee makes the signal to stop the clock, you hit the button that stops the clock. When the referee does the start the clock signal, you press the button that starts the clock. That is your job. On this play, the referee, right in front of Isaac Tisla, signals to stop the clock 3 times. He's not off to the side. He's not far side of the field. He is in front of the play. He is right there. And he signals 3 times to stop the clock. And the clock keeps running. And I was standing there watching the TV, and I'm just like, why is the clock running? Why is the clock running? The referee said stop the clock. And then the Lions, I presume, probably were a little surprised the clock was running at first. Then they get up there. By the time they're about to spike the ball, the referee is holding them up because the replay booth is buzzing down to say, wait a second, that wasn't out of bounds. Just what a fiasco. Like it should have been the clock stops at 16, then they review it, then the 10-second runoff down to 6. It should have been easy, should have been crisp. And again, it just turns into this mess where everyone's trying to figure out what's going on because apparently the clock keeper is the most clueless person in the stadium and can't just see basic things and operate a clock. Like I just don't know. Is the clock analog? Like are they cranking it with their hands? I it's just
Well, and the other thing too is like that's the first version that they end up having to sort out after replay. The other version is the ref correctly rules that Tesla was inbounds, and then the Lions actually sprint to the line to spike it, and they end up with 6 seconds anyways. So we got
Yeah.
to the correct resolution. We just got there in the messiest way possible and the way that will make Bears fans the angriest. But I should also mention that was not the only time the refs and the clock, man, like the timekeeper, were out of sync. There was a play early in the second half where the 4th and 5, the Bears line up to go for it on 4th and 5. They first they ruled that it was 4th and 3, then they switch it back to 4th and 5, and then the Bears snap the ball, but the ref is still in the middle of the offensive line because the replay booth is buzzing down. Like every one of the officials in this game was so out of sync, so incompetent, honestly, with managing the clock. It was horrible from just a game, like a fan watching perspective.
Yeah, I mean, just a mess. The timekeeper stuff's just been frustrating me for a while. It just needs needs to be better. I don't know how hard it can be. You got the referees who make enough mistakes that it we shouldn't be ending up in this place with the timekeeper too. So, thankfully, the Lions didn't really get ripped off by that. It just kind of, and they got to the right place and they ran a great play with 6 seconds left to get the touchdown. And so credit to them. It was a nice way to salvage it, but it was quite an adventure in the moment.
Yep. So aside from that, I think we've said all we need to say about this game. Moving on to some things around the league. The only reason we normally would not mention an AFC related storyline, but because they play the Lions in week 5, it is very relevant. Joe Burrow suffers a grade 3 turf toe injury that will require surgery. Now, they are saying he's out 3 months. I'm gonna call BS on that one. He's not coming back this year. I'm just gonna say only there have been 25 players in NFL history that have had this kind of injury and required surgery. Only 20 of 25 even played another snap in the NFL. Zero of them returned the same season.
Yeah, it's kind of like the. Did you see the tweet yesterday about Jalen Johnson, where I don't remember which account it was, but it was like Jalen Johnson is out for the year unless maybe he comes back if the Bears are in contention, and
Yeah, all right.
if the Bengals are in the Super Bowl, maybe Joe Burrow comes back. But I'm gonna tell you right now, they're not gonna be in the Super Bowl with Jake Browning. So
See, at least when the Lions fans were doing that with Aiden Hutchinson last year, at least the Lions were good in the regular season. Like, at least they were winning games. What are we doing here? The Bengals and Jake Browning is a fine backup quarterback. He's probably one of the better backups in the league. The Bengals were going to miss the playoffs with Joe Burrow play. Like, Joe Burrow could have thrown for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. The Bengals still probably would have missed the playoffs because their defense is so bad. Jake Browning is
yeah,
gonna, like, the Bengals are going to be bad. And I saw people talking about, oh, the Lions should trade for Trey Hendrickson now that the Bengals are sellers. Whoa, hold on, relax. But yeah, that is very relevant because the Lions play them in week 5. That game, suddenly the Lions are going to go from like 4.5 point favorites to like 12 point favorites, probably. Like it's going to be that one might be real
yeah,
bad.
yeah. The Bengals were already like the flimsiest 2-0 of all time before the Joe Burrow injury. I mean, they barely survived the Jaguars. They barely beat the Browns after the Browns kind of handed them the game. They have not looked good to me at all, and now they're without Burrow. My main thought, imagine going back in time to the night of the Super Bowl that the Bengals were in against the Rams, and then telling someone what would happen to the Bengals in the next 4 seasons after that. I mean, it
Most teams only
remarkable.
get one shot. Most teams only get one shot. And it's very difficult to build a consistent winner. But I do relish in the fact that every single season, every single week, we find new ways to use the meme of Burrow behind Sewell can throw it to anyone. Burrow behind anyone cannot get it to Jamar Chase every single time. And it's really unfortunate because Burrow and Chase are one of the most electric, if not the most electric duos in the league, and they never are going to hit their full potential because the Bengals' offensive line has always been a joke, just horrible by Cincy. But I digress. And then, obviously, we mentioned the tush push.
I actually have one more AFC story for you, real quick.
Oh, here we go.
I will read you the San Diego should be Chargers. We don't acknowledge LA here. Um, Here's their upcoming schedule. You tell me when they're going to be an underdog or when they lose a game. Home to Broncos, at Giants, home to Commanders, at Dolphins, home to Colts, home to Vikings, at Titans, home to Steelers, at Jaguars, bye week, home to Raiders, home to Eagles. Is that the next time they're an underdog?
Yeah, so next time they're an underdog will be the Eagles. They could lose to the Broncos. The Broncos are a good team, but
Yeah, that's a big game this weekend, but like look at that schedule.
well, I'm going to go one step further. Go look at the Chiefs' schedule. What is more likely? The LA Chargers win the division, or if you pull up the Kansas City Chiefs schedule, the Chiefs miss the playoffs. Because the Chargers have a very easy schedule, and the Chiefs still have the Ravens, they still have the Lions, they still have the Bills, I believe. Like
Yep.
they've got, and obviously they have to play the Broncos twice, they have to play the Chargers again. There is a world where the Chiefs end up 10 and 7 and miss the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean they have at Giants, Ravens, at Jags, Lions, Raiders, Commanders, at Bills until their bye week, and then at Broncos out of the bye week. So
Like it's not likely, but I'm certainly starting to get into the camp of the Chiefs are not going to win the AFC West this year. I'm starting to believe there's a the Chiefs could start 2-4, and if you start 2-4, they'll be fine because then they'll get Rashee Rice back and Xavier Worthy will be healthy and they'll be able to actually throw the football. But at the same time, if Mahomes is missing guys that are open by 30 yards, I don't know if you saw that clip where Tyquan
yeah.
Thornton, two DBs collide into each other, and Mahomes manages to miss the easiest touchdown of his life. They like the Chiefs just do not seem as intimidating this year.
Well, they took away the devil magic, and what was left is a team that was scraping by each week last year. So
I will say the Adam Schefter um, tweet, or like he said, like the Chiefs lost this game the second that the tush push wasn't banned. And then everyone was responding to that, being like, yes, the tush push not being banned is why Travis Kelce dropped a touchdown and gave it to the Eagles defender in the end zone, right? So that was quite amusing. The the NFL, and also we should mention the Giants and Cowboys. What on earth was that game? What the Cowboys defense stinks. The Giants we know suck, but they managed to put up 37 on the Russell Wilson looked like it was 2014 again for some reason on that day in Dallas. Like that was the most insane game. We had Wandale Robinson had like 140 yards. Malik Neighbors had like 160 yards and multiple touchdowns. Like that was a circus.
yeah, that was quite a game. I was disappointed that the Cowboys won because they played the Bears this week, and I was wanting the like 0-2, 0-2, two teams in crisis in the NFL's largest, fan bases sort of narrative, but the Cowboys scrape it out. It was a kind of crazy little period there in the end of the 4 o'clock or 1 o'clock window into the 4 o'clock because then later in the day that Broncos Colts game was a mess at the end with
Oh,
the horrible penalty by the Broncos on the final field goal. And then out of nowhere, Carolina like almost comes back and then they recover an onside kick, which you rarely
Arizona,
see
man.
anymore. And then
Woo.
there was just nonstop penalties, terrible penalties too. Just total ref show. Finally, the Cardinals win in kind of a ball don't lie moment, but there was a lot going on there in that little block of time.
Yeah, it was certainly a very entertaining week. If you were watching Red Zone, it was a lot. Now shifting over away from the rest of the league and focusing more on things that are a little more relevant to the Lions. The Green Bay Packers might be legit. They might be the second best team in the NFC behind the Eagles right now, although the Eagles have hardly looked convincing in either of their two wins. But the Packers dominate the Commanders on Thursday night. Certainly, we've alluded to it earlier, made us feel better about the Lions offense going into Sunday. And now seeing, like, obviously that was a bad day for the Lions, but yeah, the Packers might, in fact, still be a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are. On the other hand, if you're a Lions fan, we've seen many times that the Packers having a great regular season and getting a good playoff seed and then a home playoff game at Lambeau has not led to Super Bowl wins. Let's just say that. So it's a long season, but they've had a very impressive start to the year.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't feel too much of a need to go through that game meticulously because the defense was good. The
Yep.
offense did enough. Kind of is what it is. Packers are 2-0. They're the favorites in the NFC North. We'll see them on Thanksgiving at this rate. Like they've got an easy enough schedule for most of the season that they will probably win 11 or 12 games. So we'll see how many the Lions get to. We'll see if that ends up being a good race for the title or not.
I mean, relevant to Green Bay and the Chiefs we were talking about, people forget that it's really hard to win divisions year after year after year in the NFL because they specifically schedule it to stop that from happening. That you finish first, you get the harder schedule. And the Packers getting the third place schedule definitely is a little bit of a boost there.
Yeah.
And so people, I think, because the Patriots and the Peyton Manning Colts were always winning, and now the Chiefs are always winning their division, the people forget how hard that really is to do year after year. And a big part of why that happened is the same reason the Bills keep winning the East now, which is the other teams in the division are awful. Like that was the story of the AFC East that entire
Yeah.
time Brady was there, and the South with Peyton and the Colts was usually unserious. Up until recently, the NFC West, I mean the AFC West was so unserious beyond the Chiefs. Like it helps a lot if the rest of the teams in your division suck. If they don't, then it's really hard to keep winning the division, generally speaking.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on to the Vikings, who, what a disaster that game against the Falcons ended up being. JJ McCarthy is now also out for 2 to 4 weeks. Just a nightmarish game. The Falcons defensive line the Vikings offensive line looks horrible. We talked about the Bengals offensive line with Joe Burrow. Man, the Vikings front does not inspire much confidence. JJ also was not inspiring much confidence. Where he's batting about 1 for 8 in terms of good quarters played at this rate.
Yeah, and then Chris Collinsworth made that point on the broadcast. I mean, JJ in this game, 11 of 21 for 158, 7.5 yards an attempt, zero touchdowns, two interceptions, six sacks for minus 38 yards.
And a couple fumbles in there too.
Oof.
Not
As a
great.
as a whole, the Vikings gained 198 total yards in this game. They only ran 46 plays because they had 23 and a half time of possession in this game. The Falcons, I mean, this was a game the Falcons kind of just throttled them in. They couldn't finish drives
No.
until the fourth quarter. That kind of made it artificially close, but the Falcons were way better than the Vikings in this game.
And from the jump, like the first 3 plays, the Falcons ran it with Bijan for like 50 yards immediately. Like they were just in like Bijan had a fantastic day for the Falcons, and it does look like for as good as the Vikings defense is, you could still run on them. The Lions kind of cracked that formula last year, but you can run on the Vikings. So especially when Blake Cashman is out, the defense isn't quite as dialed in for them. I will say over the last few weeks I love the Andrew Van Ginkel discourse because he's so good at one thing, and that is jumping screens. And aside from that, he's pretty good at most things, but he's elite at that one thing. And then the rest of the defense is still good. Like Brian Flores still does a great job, but yeah, the fear factor for the Vikings has definitely gone down a couple notches.
Now, I'm not scared of this team whatsoever at the moment. Like it, we were kind of projecting regression, but this looks rough at the moment. And this coming week, the Vikings have the tortoise versus snail race in the Bengals Vikings matchup.
That
Real
game might be 6-3.
must watch television. And then at Steelers, at Browns until their bye week, which maybe JJ comes back for that Browns game. Honestly, I think you kind of just hold him to the bye week. But then out of the
Because
bye week,
they'll probably backdoor their way into 2 wins in that stretch. So
yeah, maybe. They'll probably lose to the Steelers. Also, that Steelers game is in Europe. We should just note that one's in
yeah,
Ireland.
I think the Vikings have 2 Europe games coming up, don't they? Don't they have London and
They
Dublin
have
or
them.
something?
Yeah, they have them back to back. They're in Dublin, and then yeah, they're in London.
Such a sneaky advantage for them. Like the other team has to fly in and get adjusted, and the Vikings will have already been there for a week. Like what is that?
If if JJ doesn't play in those games, the fine people of Ireland will be treated to Carson Wentz versus 45-year-old Aaron Rodgers, and the fine people of London will be treated to Carson Wentz versus 45-year-old
Forty-eight.
Joe Flacco,
Yeah.
someone from the Browns. Like,
The I feel so I kind of feel bad because it seems like every year the NFL manages to turn out the worst possible product for these Europe games. And I don't know how they keep doing it. It's absolutely incredible how bad these games have been over the last half decade.
well, remember last year they sent them Carolina Giants. I think that one
Ugh,
was in Germany.
I think that was the Panthers' first win of the year or something like that. Like it was, oh man. And I I'm a little terrified because I know the Lions have a Europe game coming up in the next few years. I don't know what it'll be. I don't know what it's going to look like, but the Lions are going to have a European game. And it's probably going to be next year, and I'm going to hate it because it's going to take one of our home games away. But
Presumably it'll be Germany, which we've been talking about. Could
yeah,
also be Brazil at some point. They've been cultivating Brazil a lot, including a Brazilian mascot. We talked about the German mascot
right.
like a month ago. They unveiled the Brazilian mascot like a week ago. Should get that on the record. By the way,
Yeah.
here's the Vikings schedule out of that bye week. Eagles, Chargers, Lions, Ravens.
Good luck.
I mean,
Hey,
there's a world where it's just kind of a lost season by like week 10, and the Vikings are just out of it.
when the schedule originally came out, I remember looking at the Lions schedule and being like, man, by the time they get to Christmas, that game in Minnesota could be really annoying because if JJ is good and then the rest of the Vikings figure it out, that Christmas game could be really annoying. And we're 2 weeks in, obviously that could still be the case, but I'm looking at that being like, Christmas miracle already. Like it's gonna be an extra little present for us potentially. Like I would love for the Vikings to mail it in by week 7. Like that because the Lions are gonna be out of a bye or is it week 8? The Lions are coming
Uh,
out of the bye to play the Vikings. That's what I do
yes,
know.
they are. Yep, that's
So
the week 8 bye into week 9.
9, yeah. So the Lions are going to be extra prepared for that. If JJ is still banged up, or I don't know what's going to be happening by then, that should be fun. I will say it, and we knew the NFC North was not going to be anywhere near as good. The Lions, Vikings, and Packers combined for what was it, like 40 wins last year in the regular season? That was never going to happen again. So I'm glad that we have two teams that we can hopefully beat up on.
Yeah, the NFC North just not looking as difficult this season between Chicago and Minnesota.
Yeah. I mean, granted, was horrible last year too, but they still
Hey,
managed to almost win on Thanksgiving because
they
Thanksgiving
also
curse.
they also almost swept the Packers. So
Block field goal.
respect the Bears.
I will say I still will be cheering very aggressively for the Bears and Vikings against the Packers this season
Oh,
because
of course.
I like last year I had to cheer for the Packers against the Vikings, which was a horrible feeling, and the Packers let me down twice with horrible performances. So I definitely feel like now that I'm going to be flipping that script, the Packers are just going to trounce the Vikings. But at the same time, Jordan Love looked horrible against that Vikings defense last year, so maybe there's some hope. Aside from that, we will flip over to week 3 now. The Lions take on the Baltimore Ravens on Monday Night Football. This is a game that I've been dreading for months at this point. This is a very difficult matchup. The Ravens are arguably the best roster in all of football, especially in the regular season with regular season Lamar. As it stands right now, the Ravens are 4.5 point favorites. They have put up 40 points in back-to-back weeks. Granted, one of them was against the Browns, but one of them was against the Bills, who are a very good team as well. The Ravens scare me, plain and simple. And I really, the last time the Lions played the Ravens, the Lions got dominated 38-6 in 2023 a couple of years ago. That was when Jamison Williams' stock hit rock bottom. That was when Brian Branch was still new to the league. That was when the Lions' interior defensive line featured Benito Jones and Isaiah Buggs. A lot of things have changed. However, the Lions are going to have to bring absolutely everything they've got for this matchup.
Hey, I don't like this in the slightest. I will say, at face value, you're like, wow, the Ravens have scored 40 plus in each of their first two games. The box score of the game this past week is not as terrifying as it may seem. They gained only 242 yards on 53 plays, 4.6 yards per play. They ran up the score due to turnovers and such. Derrick Henry, 23 yards on 11 carries in that game.
God, I'd love to
Af-
replicate that.
After rushing for 169 yards on 18 carries and two touchdowns in the Sunday night game against Buffalo in week one. Lamar, 19 of 29 for 225, 7.8 yards per attempt, four touchdowns, three sacks, minus 28. That's, I think, what the Lions have to go in there trying to do is just like find a way, sell out to stop the run, bend but don't break, force some field goals, keep their points down, get a couple
The
turnovers.
the defensive game plan was set by Aaron Glenn in 2021, where you stop the run, contain, force Lamar to beat you with his arm, hold them to field goals. The problem in 2021 was the offense stunk, and they
Yeah.
lost on a 66-yard walk-off field goal by Justin Tucker, which was a horrible feeling, but it got us Aiden Hutchinson, so it all worked out. This time around, the we know a lot of what the Lions are going to try to do. They're going to sell it to stop the run. They're going to play their base 4-3 a lot. They're going to do their best to contain Derrick Henry, and then when they rush the passer, they're going to do their best to keep Lamar in the pocket, and they're going to play man coverage. They are not going to use a spy, or very seldom use a spy because they don't believe in that. And we're going to see what happens. Now, the unfortunate thing is Lamar Jackson is so fast and athletic that whenever he decides he wants to scramble, it doesn't matter how much contain you use, he's going to get out of the pocket. And if he wants to run, he's going to run. The most important thing is stopping Derrick Henry because you have to put the Ravens into third and long situations because for as good as Lamar is, he can't hit every single one. And if you can get two or three stops, then you at least give yourself a chance. Offensively, the Ravens defense is absolutely electric. We talked about Brian Branch and how he's one of the best safeties in the league. Well, the Ravens also have one of the best safeties in the league in Kyle Hamilton, who does a lot of the same things Brian Branch does. So you're kind of looking in the mirror a little bit with that. We talked about the problems with the interior offensive line. Well, hello, Matabukwe is going to be a force to be reckoned with. The Ravens also have very good linebackers. They got very good corners. They've got incredible special teams, so Dave Phipps' unit is going to be challenged a bit. They had a blocked punt last week, I believe. They also do very good in the return game. So every single player on this 53-man roster has to bring their A game. Otherwise, problems are going to happen. We saw in 2023, if you don't bring your A game, you will get run out of the building very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens, I don't think they're the best team in the NFL necessarily, but they are the team I would want to play the least as the Lions.
Yep. Yep.
Like the Bills present the same offensive challenges, but we saw last year that the Lions can score with the Bills.
Hmm.
And the Ravens obviously did in the first week too. So like I feel, Chiefs, they have the reputation name, but their actual play has been very dicey for a little while now. Eagles, we'll see them later in the year. Definitely a tough test, but as you mentioned, haven't been elite necessarily so far this season. And Jalen Hurts can kind of come and go, but like the Ravens, just the mix of the mobile quarterback who is elite in the regular season, and then the really good defense, and just oh man, like it's just this has been a mental loss in my mind for since we knew this was going to be on the schedule, really, and
Hmm.
hopeful that I want to see them battle. You can't have 2023
Oh,
happen again. You can't
no.
get blown out twice in three games. This has to be a competitive game, but it's going to be an uphill battle. This was, to me, the hardest game the rest of the way for this team.
And it is kind of a funny natural progression. We get blown out in week one, then you blow out the Bears in week two. Now we should have a competitive game in week three that actually is a bit of a nail biter. The line, like, and look, we say all this to not to say that the Lions are going to lose. But the Ravens are the biggest mismatch for the Lions in the entire NFL during the regular season. Now it's ironic because the Ravens are also a team I want. If the Lions ever do make it to a Super Bowl, I'd play the Ravens because they have a propensity to choke in the playoffs. So that is kind of ironic, but just not a fun matchup. And if the like, I think saying that we are expecting the Ravens to win, I'm still giving the Lions a 40% chance, somewhere around there. Like, it's by no means like if these teams played 100 games, it's not like the Lions are not winning any of them. I'm just not very confident about playing elite teams, which I feel like is a very rational fear.
Yeah, this is just I we said it after week one that we could look back and say the Packers were one of the toughest teams Lions played. It's very possible that this, when we look back on this season, that the two hardest games were in the first 3 weeks. Um,
Yep. But I mean, the good news is after this, you get to go play the Browns and Bengals. So
yeah, so just get through this week, have a good battle. If
don't
they
get hurt.
win, yeah, if they win, that'd be pretty cool. I'm
Oh,
not
if the
not
Lions
counting on
win,
it,
then
but
if the Lions win, we're gonna be like marking
hype
off
train is
going.
back on.
We'll be like, oh, we're gonna be 4-1 going into Kansas City for Sunday Night Football. Let's go. If they lose, I'm fully expecting the Lions to be 3-2 after week 5. I fully
That
expect them to lose this week, win against the Browns, win against the Bengals.
that should be the goal at the moment.
And that honest like if I had to give a percentage, there's probably like that is by far the most likely outcome at the current moment. So we'll see what happens. But Monday night, so enjoy Sunday watching Red Zone and not having to think about the Lions. And then Monday night, get ready for 3 hours of stress and anxiety. With that being said, Alex, do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap up for the week?
Nope, not really.
All right. Well, in that case, if you've made it this far, make sure to hit like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Make sure you follow and leave us a review if you're on any podcasting platform. You can find the show on Twitter at Payne and Drain. You can find me at ZachPayne41. You can find Alex at Alex_Drain. And we will see you guys next week. Have a good one, everyone. Cheers.